time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day. So join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
It makes you feel good to know that this group can go win a road game. You know, without Dante Grantham, we can go on the road and win in a place that's hard to win in front of a good crowd. You know, hopefully what it does is give confidence to the guys that need it on our team. He doesn't need it. You know, most of the Shelton Mitchell and Gabe DeVoe don't need it. They're fine. But some of the other guys on our team need some confidence, and that certainly helps.
Last couple of years, I've been used to calling a timeout at the end of a game and being able to execute and try and get the shot we were trying to get. That continues to be with teams that present resistance defensively. That continues to give us problems.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome back into Sports Talk. I know you've missed us. Been away for a couple of days. We're back. Good to be with you. Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, Tom Hayes, Brian Leonard, all from our downtown Columbia Learfield studios. 800-956-7266 is the phone number. Love to hear from you tonight. Busy weekend behind us, a busy week ahead. Think about this. We've got Tar Heels and Tigers tomorrow night at Little John. Wednesday night, we got Bulldogs and Gamecocks at Colonial Life. Thursday night, we got Huskies and Gamecocks at Colonial Life. Sunday, we got the Super Bowl. It's a big week. A week from Wednesday. And we got signing day number 2.
Mm-hmm. And yesterday, Sunday, we had roller derby disguised as women's basketball.
How about that, man? I love it. I love the ladies getting out there and laying it on the line. And that is one intense rivalry now that has been developed between these two teams because of the physical nature that, according to Dawn Staley, Missouri likes to play with, brings to the court.
I would tell you, I've been on this earth over 60 years. And I saw something new that I've never seen in a ball game. A hard screen on the last shot.
Yeah.
Oh, that was great.
I'm telling you.
In a 10-point game.
It was, there's a picture taken by Sideline Carolina that shows Aja Wilson going up for a shot, and the defender from Missouri just has her elbow planted right in her nose. I mean, lucky it wasn't anything it did not cause an injury or anything like that, but it's a great picture that Travis Bell took, and just got either her elbow or forearm just planted right onto Aja Wilson's nose.
A lot of this, what they do is it's mental warfare as opposed to physical. And I know that they use their physical warfare, but they do it to get inside your head. And I think it's something that has become a proving ground and a successful tactic. I mean, Missouri's top 15 team right now, and while they lost on Sunday, you know, they've split the season series with South Carolina, and you know, these two teams between them and Mississippi State, I mean, they're providing what is really the foremost basketball conference in women's basketball right now, because you've got 3 teams that will try to lay their claim to the team that South Carolina will play on Thursday. UConn was shut out of the women's basketball championship last year by Mississippi State, and some that obviously is a proving ground for them and a proving ground for South Carolina on Thursday night to see just exactly where they stack up against the nation's best.
Well, here's the question. Do the Gamecocks have anything for this Connecticut team? I mean, everybody thought it would be South Carolina, Connecticut in the national championship game. Mississippi State, did they do the Gamecocks a favor last year by knocking out Connecticut? You know, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Maybe South Carolina would have won it anyway. But this, you talk about in your head and a mental hurdle. I mean, these great South Carolina teams that they have had the past several seasons, they have not yet been able to play with UConn home or away.
And this team is not up to the snuff of last year's team. A lot of it because of injury and a lot of it because of the defections from last year's team. But I'll be curious to see how Dawn Staley plays this and how they go about taking on this challenge, because it'll be a very, very tough one for them. And you know, Ty Harris stepped up in the game when Aja Wilson had an off night. An off night for her is 15 points, 15 rebounds. But Ty Harris stepped up. Kiki Herbert-Harrigan was back in the game for them after a couple of games off with an injury. So at least they get those parts back. But it's going to be very, very difficult for them to beat UConn because of the fact that they're just so deficient right now. They're playing still like a bit of a match unit. They're still without Lindsey Spann. We'll see if she gets herself back for this game. Not sure whether she will or not. But South Carolina right now, nothing to hang their head on because they right now have a very, very significant stretch where they have to not only play the aforementioned Mississippi State team, but this UConn team as well.
UConn team has a lot of depth. That's where it's key. That's where South Carolina has to uncharacteristically play a slow down game because Connecticut is going to try to push it to make sure they run out of gas and then just really put the pedal to the metal in the fourth quarter.
All right. I was at USC for the Gamecocks and Texas Tech. Another really good game. Unfortunately for the Gamecocks, they've had two tough losses at home last two times out, and they were very good basketball games. The Gamecocks just could not finish either one of them. They had a 5-point lead against Texas Tech, and then they became brick masons down the stretch. One for their last 7. All 6 misses were from 3. They missed a couple of crucial free throws. They had a flagrant foul called against them. A lot of things negative happened to South Carolina down the stretch. They could have won that game over a top 20 team, a very good Texas Tech team. Evans, the guard for Texas Tech, is he's a special player. He took over that game, 31 points, 12 points in the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game. Just a terrific player. So a tough loss for the Gamecocks at home in front of another really good crowd of 14,000 plus. That's the bad news. The good news is it was outside the league, so it does not hurt them in terms of the SEC. And the Gamecocks host Mississippi State Wednesday night with a chance to get over 500 in the league for the first time this year. Now, you were in Atlanta last night, and that was a really good win for Clemson. Early on, I thought they were going to get run out of the building.
They did. They didn't come out starting very, very well. It was a 7-0 start for Georgia Tech, and Brad Brownell called a timeout basically to try and wake his team up. And they were able to earn their way back. They got some defensive stops. Marquise Reed, who struggled with his shot early, became more of a facilitator, got some other guys involved. Gabe DeVoe went off in the first half. It's his 3rd consecutive game that he had double-digit points in the first half. He actually carried it over to the second half, though, this time around, because the last 2 games he had a combined 3 points in the second half, including getting shut out completely against Virginia last Tuesday. But big plays down the stretch. They were able to build a lead in the second half. They made a 13-0 run that encompassed both sides at the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half. It kind of kept Georgia Tech at arm's length for a while. They had about, I think it was a 6-point lead at the under 4 timeout. And I said, listen, if you get 3 stops, 3 defensive stops, you can win this basketball game. They could not get the defensive stops. Georgia Tech pulled back even at 70-70. They get a nice play from Marquise Reed to get the game-winning shot, what proved to be the game-winning shot, and to get a defensive stop on the other end. They were fortunate that despite the fact that Marquise Reed missed the front end of the 1-and-1, that Georgia Tech could not get the ball down the other way in order to get themselves a chance to look for either the tie or the win. But winning on the road in the ACC is tough. You apologize for nothing, even though the score line doesn't look very cosmetic against a team that you probably should beat, against a team that's under 500 now in Georgia Tech. Again, you apologize for nothing. Road wins in the ACC are hard to come by, and I don't know if that's a victory that last year's team would have won. And the one thing that you heard Brad Brownell say in the open is that it's a confidence boost for certain players on this team, like Amir Sims, like Mark Donnell, like David Scara, who showed more on defense and rebounding. Because I really looked to watch him in that game because we've been kind of killing him a little bit for his lack of scoring, but what he brings in the other facets of the game, you're starting to notice them. He's not necessarily picking up rebounds, but he's being a very good on-ball defender, and he was part of the key to the victory last night.
You got to know where your role is, and let's face it, the key to Clemson, 10-21 from 3. That'll help you a lot.
They didn't get to the free throw line as much as I wanted them to because the fact that they only took 9
from distance.
They only took 9 free throw attempts, and Georgia Tech did not have a foul called against them until 7:34 to play in the opening half. A lot of that had to do with refereeing, but a lot of that also had to do with Clemson and its lack of aggression inside.
Tigers tied for 3rd in the ACC with Duke at 6-3, Louisville 6-2. What about Virginia?
Woo.
How impressive are they? 9-0 in the league after their win Saturday. Back in a moment.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Basketball tonight in the ACC, just one game. It is Duke and Notre Dame meeting up in the Cameron Indoor Stadium, 7 o'clock tonight. Nothing in the SEC tonight, so we'll be keeping a watch out on that. There are some games around the state we'll be checking out as well. 800-956-7266 is the phone number. Of course, a busy weekend in recruiting. We've hit the last week of the 2018 football recruiting season. Can you believe it? Seems like it's been 2 years running. That's because you've been following these guys for 2-3 years. And we had a signing day already in December that seemed like the end of the road, except it's not. It's just a fork in the road. Some chose to take it and some chose not to take it. Those who didn't take it will be signing a week from Wednesday. So a lot of things happening over the weekend. South Carolina had 4 officials. Clemson had 2. And we'll go over everything for you in the next half hour, so prepare for that.
I still can't, at least in my mind, look at the way this year went and not think that there's at least some regret on people who didn't sign earlier because their spot might not be there. And I think it could be an indication of the way next year will go. I think we'll even see a bigger transition to more guys deciding to sign early.
It's possible. It's entirely possible. I still wonder how this is going to work out with the early official visits and not signing until December. Those who decide they want to make a decision for the 2019 class and take officials in April and May and then make the commitment then, from their standpoint, that's all well and good. They can forget about recruiting, concentrate on their senior season. Their high school coach will certainly like that. But then will that call off the dogs? Football coaches, for whatever reason, are not like basketball coaches.
Yeah, basketball coaches will leave you alone after you commit.
Seems like, do you ever see a basketball player decommit just for the sake of decommitting because other schools continue to recruit him? They decommit sometimes because of a coaching change or whatever the case may be. But usually when a basketball guy commits, like USC got Jermaine Couisnard, 6'4" kid from Chicago, outside of Chicago, on Saturday, and they don't have to worry about him. I mean, he's not going to sign until April, but they don't have to worry about anybody coming in and snaking him because apparently there's an understanding amongst basketball coaches that you back off.
But the interesting thing is, a lot of basketball players transfer after they get,
now that is
after
true.
they get there.
They do have an absurd number of transfers.
They have it's almost like the smaller number of the players, the more they make a decision and stay with it. And when you got 30-something odd players, they've always said that old unspoken phrase that when you commit to a college football team, that only lets the other schools know who the enemy is.
Well, the other part, this could be a bit of a misnomer, but this is something that this kind of goes back to the Zion Williamson thing of why John Calipari was so upset about the way that Coach K is pitching a lot of these players. There's a certain gentlemanly aspect, it seems, to basketball recruiting, whereas football recruiting has more of a dirty connotation, as in you do whatever you can to try and get the player. Whereas
that's the funny thing, because basketball is the dirt. I think basketball is dirtier than football in recruiting because one guy can turn your whole program around. Of
course.
But do you
agree with what I'm saying?
Yeah, but that's why, I'm a little bit, to me, it's sort of confusing. On the one hand, the recruiters, as they go about doing their recruiting, are as unscrupulous and dirty as they can be in a lot of cases in college basketball. On the other hand, once a commitment is made, they pretty much back off a kid.
Right.
Football, there's some dirty stuff and shenanigans going on. I think we all understand that. But when a guy commits, especially with weeks or months to go before the signing day, that just revs up the other recruiters to go in after it.
A lot of times, if someone gets an offer, I mean, that'll open somebody else's eyes in that way. And that just tells you, this is a guy we got to keep our eye on.
An interesting dynamic, I think, in basketball that you have a little bit in football, but not much, is the approach that a private school with not a big-time football program does against a school that has a good basketball program, but they know they're not the big man on campus. You come here to Villanova, and you to be the big man on campus.
Villanova, Duke does that. Syracuse does that kind of thing.
So just to quickly summarize things from over the weekend and today, I would say as we sit here right now, it looks very good for Clemson with Mario Goodrich, cornerback out of Missouri, Dabo Sweeney was in today for his in-home visit, along with a couple of his. Actually, he had Venables with him. Mickey Kahn was with him, and Mike Reed was with him.
Hopefully they got to Kansas City and got a little barbecue out there.
Well, I don't know, but they apparently are going to get the kid. It looks very positive for Clemson with that. He's not going to visit Arkansas as he had scheduled for this coming weekend. So that looks like that's done. He's also been to LSU and Georgia, but we'll talk more about his visit to Clemson from this past weekend. But from what sources are telling me this afternoon, it looks very positive for Clemson. And Sweeney may have gone from there to Cypress Springs, Texas.
Oh, so he's just doing the old Will Pelagic reunion tour
to go see O'Neal out there, the defensive back, and who also visited Clemson a couple of weekends ago, and the Tigers are trying to see if they can pull him in away from Texas A&M. As for the Gamecocks, I would say that coming off this weekend, from talking to all four players who visited South Carolina this weekend, they all four had terrific visits, and I really think that with Wanham and Sandage in particular, it would be a huge upset if the Gamecocks did not land both of those guys at this point. First of all, you look at the obvious things. Sandage has a mom who's a grad. He's been to South Carolina more times than anybody else. They have shown him extreme love. And Muschamp has personally recruited him as hard as you can. And there's ample opportunity to play. He likes the place. Unless Georgia just blew him away on his official visit to where he can't get Georgia out of his mind, I think he'll sign with Carolina. Wanham, we finally heard his voice yesterday. We finally heard a word come out of his mouth. He's actually a very nice kid. He just doesn't like talking about recruiting. And he was there with his family, his mom, his dad, his brother came over. And I think it's a case where he's most familiar with South Carolina. I think he's very comfortable there. He has been there several times for games. He knows there's a need for him. They've recruited him very hard. Again, I just feel like those two look very, very strong for South Carolina at this point. I'll be shocked if you can't pencil those in. Now, Wanham may announce something this week. He's got his in-homes coming up this week, and we'll go into detail on that in recruiting coming up a little bit later on. He could announce something this week. Sandage will probably make his decision this week and notify his school, but is not going to announce until the 7th. Mincy, who was in on Thursday and left early Saturday so we could get home for another basketball game. It's USC and Tennessee there. And I think in-homes this week will help determine what he decides to do. And then Warren Thompson, just spoke with him a few minutes ago again. Well, that's a good-looking wide receiver. You're talking about
6'5",
6'4", 6'5", on a real solid-looking body. And
fast,
I imagine. Fast enough. Brian McClendon will be down tomorrow for a visit with him. Muschamp's already had his in-home. And Florida State's going to be probably the other big factor with him because he committed to Willie Taggart once out at Oregon. Now he's at Florida State. You got proximity and all that kind of stuff working for Florida State. Tennessee's in the hunt there with him as well. So, again, I would say the two linemen, offense, defense, that we talked about, Wanham and Sandage right now coming out of the weekend.
Those are priorities.
Well, they are priorities, and I think they are strong likelihoods for South Carolina at this point. We'll be back. Sports Talk in just a moment. It is Sports Talk here on a Monday night from Columbia. 800-956-7266. Our email talkback at sportstalksc.com and on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. That's how you can reach us tonight if you want to join us. Big trade in the NBA just being announced.
Yeah, Blake Griffin possibly going to or at least according to Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, he's going to be sent to the Detroit Pistons. The package of players, there's some consternation on exactly what the package of players is, but looks like Avery Bradley, Tobias Harris could be involved as well. Also, Boban Marjanovic also involved as well, and a couple of draft picks as well going back to LA. But a big move for a coaching player relationship that had broken down severely over the last couple of years.
And, of course, a guy you couldn't trust because he stayed injured a lot. Tobias Harris is a good all-around small forward. Big, he can rebound. And it'd be interesting to see what happens in the Pistons because now you got two capable guys who can rebound. Don't know about scoring from outside 19 feet, but a lot of times you don't want that anyway. But Andre Drummond, who's a rebounding machine, and Blake Griffin could be compatible as a Twin Towers deal in Detroit.
You know, I was in the Low Country over the weekend, Corn. Beautiful Charleston.
I heard that. Yeah, went to the hockey game.
It was very nice. Partook in some Stingrays hockey. They won 5-0 over Orlando. Very, very nice show. You should go out and see some of that.
I have been to the arena before. I think I have seen the Stingrays before. I know I saw the Columbia minor league hockey team when they were here. Yeah, and I saw the one in Florence when they had one.
They have one in Greenville, too, as well.
Yeah.
Very, very fun.
Well, I'm glad you felt at home there.
It was very good.
A sport that you can appreciate and understand.
As opposed to the ones that I appreciate and understand on this program?
Well, seem to not appreciate nor understand.
I appreciate and understand all sports we talk about and the ones we don't, like hockey.
The news notes that we have for you, Baseball America's preseason All-American team announced today. Clemson first baseman Seth Beer named to the first team.
Love Beer.
And USC's Carlos Cortez, an outfielder, named to the third team. Only two players from the state selected to those three teams that make up the Baseball America squad. The Panthers today named their new defensive line coach. He is Brady Hoke.
Familiar name.
Former Michigan head coach, former Tennessee defensive line coach. Been around a good bit, and so he is headed to the Panthers to fill that spot.
Brother of a guy that Gamecock fans love, defensive backs coach John Hoke.
Rick Mueller, who has worked in pro football for over 20 years, has been named Coastal Carolina's executive director for player personnel. He and Joe Moglia previously worked together with the Omaha Nighthawks, and he most recently served as executive director of player personnel with the Eagles. So this gentleman has a keen eye for football and for players, I would say. Charleston Southern coach Mark Tucker has named Brad Robbins as his new wide receivers coach. He had been at VMI. Big South player of the week is Winthrop forward Xavier Cooks, 23.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists per game, as Winthrop is on a 6-game winning streak right now, coming on strong in the Big South. And, basketball rankings out today for the gentlemen. We have Clemson in the top 20 once again. The Tigers, by the Associated Press, after their win last night, they are 20th this week by the Associated Press. And it's Villanova, Virginia, Purdue, Duke, Michigan State, Xavier, Kansas, Cincinnati, Arizona, and Texas Tech is now number 10. So, if you believe in quality losses, then South Carolina had a quality loss on Saturday to a top 10 team.
Clemson had a quality loss on Tuesday to a team that's now number 2. Well,
they did, and they've got 19 North Carolina waiting on the doorstep tomorrow night.
That's a big game, not just because of who's on the other side, but I think Clemson needs to prove that they're not just a one-trick pony and gets wins at Little John Coliseum. I know that they're playing at Little John Coliseum, but I think for this contest for them, they need to prove that they can win against an opponent of that nature and get a revenge win there.
Did you have Kim Palm having the Tigers actually the favorite in this game?
1.5-point favorite according to the early lines out.
Clemson's lost 10 in a row to North Carolina. The female ranking by the AP, UConn is number 1. Mississippi State is number 2. And those are, I think, South Carolina's next 2 opponents, right?
They are
Correct.
And USC now number 7, moving up to number 7 after their win. So it's UConn, Mississippi State, Baylor, Louisville, Notre Dame, and Oregon. Then the Gamecocks, Texas, UCLA, and Florida State at number 10.
And that game against the Bulldogs is on the road in Starkville.
And full disclosure is we gave the Gamecock jinx to Mike Young.
Well, we gave him the Sports Talk jinx, not the Gamecock jinx. The Sports Talk jinx. Unfortunately.
East Tennessee State is just a good basketball team.
B.J. Mackey.
They are tremendous.
Gone in there and helped Coach Forbes keep that thing going. Speaking of Dawn Staley, it was a big game last night, physical game, a lot of emotion. Here she is after the game last night talking with the media about the win and the fisticuffs, little scuffle, whatever you want to call it. Here is what she had to say.
Donna, how's Danya, and what happened at the end of the game there?
She ran into a screen or an elbow, or I don't know. I got to see it on film. She's good. She's good.
Coach, at the end of the second quarter, when that scuffle, fight, whatever you want to call it, broke out, what did you see, and what are your thoughts on that?
I saw a scuffle break out. I just think our players are on edge. They don't want to. They watched the film from last game, and they just don't want to, go into a game unprotected. So our first thing is just making sure everybody's okay out there on the floor, both teams. Intensity was high, and I just saw some players just trying to protect themselves on both sides of the ball, both sides of the team, both teams.
Coach, what does this win mean for your team today?
It means a win in the SEC. Nothing more, nothing less. I mean, they don't mean any more than a win in the SEC.
Coach, it seemed your team, it was pretty apparent they came out with an extra edge tonight. I know you try to treat every game the same, but was there something in the locker room when you talk about what happened last time? They saw the film of what happened last time. Did you want your team to come in with a little bit more edge tonight to make sure they protected their home floor against a physical Missouri team?
I mean, anytime you lose to a team, there's a revenge factor. I thought our team, was on high alert just to compete every play. And not to give in to fatigue, not to give in to anything, that could happen out there on the floor, and they did that.
Just a continuation off that, it seems like whenever you guys play Mizzou, it's very heated. What about Mizzou causes it to be heated and that type of thing?
I guess their style of play. They're a very physical basketball team, and, they clog the paint up. And sometimes it's difficult for our post players to have the room that they need to be impactful.
According to somebody from the radio contingent of Missouri, apparently some of the Missouri players complained about getting spat on by South Carolina.
No, please take that back to Missouri, will you?
Just saying. That's
Seriously,
what he said.
quit your whining.
That's what he said.
Okay, show me. You got showed, okay? Show me, Staters. You got here. You got showed up. All right? They took the basketball, they took their elbows, and they shoved it down your throat. So take your whining and your knees and your elbows back with you. Who does Missouri play next? Who are they going to try and beat up next?
I'm not sure.
So they picked on the wrong dog when they started picking on Dawn Staley now.
There were people thinking about that there was a conspiracy theory about why I wasn't there, why Sports Talk decided to send me.
We were there via this new thing called television.
And an intern. We had an intern too.
We had it well covered. Believe you me, we had it well covered.
Hey,
okay,
it's fine. I enjoyed my time.
Here's
in
the
Atlanta.
amazing thing: whether we're there or not, they're going to play the game. Okay,
they play Mississippi State too. They play them on Thursday, and then South Carolina gets them right after that.
If we're there, nobody notices. If we're not there, nobody notices. That's the beautiful thing about being invisible. Hey, how about some recruiting coming up in a moment?
How about it?
Now back. South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Our poll question on our website, SportsTalkSC.com. Make sure you participate. Who wins the Super Bowl? Thus far, 51.7% say the Eagles. 48% say the Patriots. I'm going with the Eagles. I like the defense. Usually I lean towards the NFC anyway. I think it's a better conference. And
really?
Well,
Really? It's a better conference for what reason?
well, it's just like they say the SEC is better than the ACC.
Well,
I think the NFC is.
From top to
Who won the
bottom.
Pro Bowl?
The
AFC.
There you go.
You just contradicted yourself.
I
like the Eagles.
No, I think top to bottom this year the NFC was better.
It was.
The AFC. You almost just lined up
AFC was top
to
heavy.
see who loses to the Patriots. But I would really like to see the Patriots come out of some, and it's not going to happen. Because they always get the championship game at home. You know, they deserve it, but you love to see them come out of the wild card round.
It's not a thing where it's predetermined. I mean, they earned those home fields over the years.
And see, you earn the home field, but gosh darn it, do they have to play at night when it's cold? I mean, at least let them play in the daytime.
Well, they typically play the first game when they have the championships. They're usually the early game.
Well, they usually play at 3.
Yeah.
So they want to get the prime time.
But that championship game,
that's a TV.
Yeah, I know. But see, now there's two advantages. You get the team there, and you get them to play at night in a refrigerator.
I think both of you are doing yourselves a disservice by going against the GOAT. And this is somebody who hates Tom Brady and Bill Belichick.
No, I love going against the GOAT because I can't stand the GOAT.
Well, it's not about that.
The GOAT if I had a chance.
I think the Eagles' defense is going to be swarming. I love their defense. And offensively, even though they don't have their star quarterback, they still have plenty of weapons on offense. They seem to be really locked in to what he's doing at quarterback. And they just seem like both teams are hot. You make it to the Super Bowl, but the way they beat the Vikings, and that was a good Vikings team, the way they beat them, that impressed me about Philadelphia.
This tandem has been to 1/7 of these Super Bowls that have played. 1/7 of the Super Bowls that have been played. I think they'll be fine.
All right, let me hit you up with recruiting because we got a lot to talk about from over the weekend. As you know, visitation weekend, really last big weekend. I'm not right now. I'm not expecting any official visits this coming weekend. It's Super Bowl weekend. Dead period hits this weekend. I mean, they could still squeeze in a guy or two if they wanted to. But here's what we've got, and we'll go quickly. Defensive lineman John Mincy, Homerville, Georgia, had his official USC over the weekend, leaving on Saturday morning, deciding between USC and Tennessee. Said he got a good look at everything at USC. Loved the facilities. Sat down with Muschamp and Thompson and Robinson, and they just told him how well he would fit into their defense. He's expecting Thompson to visit tomorrow to watch his basketball game. He's also expecting Tennessee to visit this coming week, not leaning one way or the other. Offensive lineman Dylan Wonnum made his official USC over the weekend with his family. He's down to USC, Tennessee, and Auburn. Could have a decision this week. He liked his major and the classes they offer. He plans to major in anthropology. My response to that is, why? I took anthropology in college. It's not fun.
You want to find out more about your enemy.
Well, it's hard.
No?
I mean, you have to really study that stuff.
You took anthropology
as an elective. I believed in college that your elective should be used to educate you, not just to help you pass. See, I was interested in being educated. I took weather and science.
I took
anthropology.
I was a history guy. I took all the history courses that you probably thumbed your nose at, stuff on into the great and stuff like that.
After I got past History 102, that was it. History 102, Math 102, I was done.
I think I went out of my way when I took a class in military tactics on Thursday. I was the only person without an ROTC uniform on Thursdays.
All right, back to recruiting, since we got off the subject. Anyway, the schools on his list, he said, right now are equal with him. Now, Auburn, Gus Malzahn in today to see him. Pruitt from Tennessee to be in tomorrow. And Muschamp, they are expecting probably on Thursday. So the head coach is all getting in this week. And I imagine that soon after the Muschamp visit, he'll have an announcement. Warren Thompson, receiver, Sefner, Florida, in at USC over the weekend. They're in the mix with Florida State and Tennessee. He's not going to announce until February 7th. Enjoyed everything at USC. He's listed at 6'5", 190. They like that he's a physical receiver. Feels like he could be a physical receiver in the SEC. And I'm going to sit down with his mom and go over everything this week. Said the visit did elevate USC on his list. He's expecting Florida State to be in today in terms of an assistant. Muschamp's already been in the home. And Brian McClendon is going to visit him tomorrow. He watched the Gamecocks practice during their bowl stay in Tampa. And then defensive lineman Rick Sandage of Concord, North Carolina at USC over the weekend. He's been there many, many times, of course. His mother's a grad. Saw the Gamecocks play almost a half dozen times this season. So he had a good time with the coaches and the players, and they had a chance to sit down with Muschamp. The message remains the same. He said he's a priority multiple times. They kept on saying that. He said, I'm going to get playing time as a freshman. And as I mentioned, the head coaches will be in his home this week. He'll make his decision, notify the school, but won't announce his decision until signing day. He's got USC, Georgia, and North Carolina still in it. Offensive lineman Lamarius Benson of Covington, Georgia, has been a long-standing USC commit. He is not indicating, it's not a given he's going to sign with the Gamecocks on the 7th because of their dissatisfaction with his weight, according to him, and his decision to take a visit over the weekend to Central Florida, which he said went good. He liked the campus and the coaches. And he said he's still publicly committed to the Gamecocks. He talked with Eric Wolford yesterday, but in his mind, he's still got a decision to make. He said, we'll see in a week, but he said Wolford still wants him. Central Florida's coming in for a visit this week, but he is not expecting USC to visit this week. So that might be a telling note right there. Defensive back Mario Goodrich of Lee Summit, Missouri, made his official to Clemson over the weekend. He was taken back by the fact that Dabo Swinney beat him in horse.
Oh.
Yes. He was shocked by that, according to assistant coach Limbo Parks. He liked the facilities. His mom went down the slide. He liked the barber. He said everything was really good.
Of course he went down the slide.
And got a positive feeling for what Swinney and Brent Venables have in store for him. As we mentioned, they were out to see him this morning. They were there when school opened up at 8:30 local time. Again, he was scheduled for Arkansas this weekend, not going to make that visit. Has been to LSU in Georgia, and certainly signs are pointing towards Clemson for him right now. USC offered 2019 defensive lineman Jaquez Sorrells of Largo, Florida, 2019 linebacker Jamal Abrams of Birmingham, 2020 linebacker Quandarius Robinson of Birmingham, Emerald running back, defensive back Trayshawn Chamberlain committed to Rice. Linebacker Jalen Moody of Conway, he went to Arkansas over the weekend. He was impressed, like the business program, facilities, coaching staff. Feels like he would fit in well with the players. He has also been to Georgia State and Ole Miss. He's still considering them. He will visit Alabama this weekend. Arkansas coach Chad Morris, Alabama coach Nick Saban plan to visit him this week. Excuse me, how's this guy getting out of state? Just wondering. USC target defensive end Dennis Briggs of Kissimmee, Florida, committed to Florida State over the weekend. He was a USC target. 2019 receiver Nolan Grouix.
Giroux.
You'd say Giroux?
Mm-hmm.
Not Grow?
No, Giroux.
Nolan Giroux of Davidson, North Carolina, committed to Wisconsin. He also has a USC offer. Coastal Carolina offered Irmo 2019 running back Kendrell Flowers.
Maybe it is Giroux.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it is Giroux.
I know my
I thought you said GIR. I'm sorry.
No. I got more. We got more. Don't go away. Tell me when you're ready.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Why you gotta go saying stuff like that going into the segment?
Hey, Duke is up on Notre Dame 6-5 early. East Tennessee and the Citadel, the Bulldogs, giving the East Tennessee State team, where are they? They're the Bucks still, right? Yeah.
Buccaneers.
38-34. We'll tell you about Joe Lunardi's latest bracket in a moment. Let me wrap up recruiting because I have some more for you, a lot more good stuff for you. So we left off with this. We just went from talking about how to pronounce Nolan Grow or Groif.
I said grow.
Grow. No, that's not how you said it. I said grow.
I said grew.
Anyway, USC has offered a walk-on opportunity to JL man punter Georgiopoulos. Georgiopoulos.
I'm guessing he's Greek.
I don't listen. I draw no conclusions.
I'm guessing he's Greek.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. Does it matter? It's
probably Greek.
I mean, I don't think it really matters.
I'm just saying.
I'd love to see his name on the back of a jersey, though. Georgiopoulos.
Pelagic was great in a hockey jersey.
Can you spell Georgiopoulos?
Ooh.
Give it a shot.
G-I.
Wrong.
What is it? Was it J?
Georgiopoulos. Georgiopoulos. That's the last name. His first name is George.
Oh, George.
Georgiopoulos.
Oh.
Let me help you.
Go ahead.
Georgopoulos. Anyway, visited USC Saturday, 10th ranked nationally by punting guru Chris Saylor. So he had a great opportunity to go there and compete against the guys. USC's been his favorite since he was a kid. He's also talking with LSU, Arizona, Nebraska, might visit Arizona this week. 2019 receiver Jalen Kelsey of Gainesville, Florida, among the unofficials at USC this weekend. Clemson offered 2019 offensive lineman Zeke Correll of Cincinnati. 2019 tight end Luke Deal of Emerald, offered by Auburn. USC offered 2019 athlete Mark Richards of West Palm Beach, Florida. Clemson USC on the short list with 2019 receiver Ramel Keaton of Marietta, Georgia. It's a list of 11. Would you like me to mention?
Don't read the whole list. Please don't read the whole list. Your propensity to read lists is bad radio, man. Don't read the whole damn list.
Our people love it.
People hate lists.
All right, let's have one caller. Do you like lists or do you not like lists? Do you side with Will or do you side with Corn?
Lists.
USC offered 2021 defensive back Gabriel Stevens of Mount Holly, North Carolina. He was in over the weekend. He's the son of former Gamecock offensive lineman Calvin Stevens, who I happen to cover coming out of high school in recruiting. That's his first offer. Very excited by him. He's only a 14-year-old freshman. Some other junior day visitors at USC, offensive lineman Keandre Jones, offensive lineman Wanya Morris, place kicker Cole Hanna, linebacker Kalen DeLoach, defensive end Jacob Cowan, tight end Garmon Randolph, tight end Tyler Fromm. Clemson offered 2019 linebacker Vonta Bentley of Birmingham. USC offered 2019 offensive lineman E.J. Doma Oger of Allen, Texas. Clemson offered the before-mentioned Wanya Morris. In basketball, 2018 6'11", E.J. Montgomery of Marietta, Georgia, has Clemson and USC in his top 11.
Don't read the top 11. Don't read the top 11.
Don't know if he made it in. 2019 6'5", Wendell Moore of Concord, North Carolina, was supposed to visit USC Saturday. Don't have any proof that he made it in. Haven't seen anything that showed that he made it in. 2018 forward Robert Braswell from Blythewood picked up offers from UMass and Murray State. Now, USC got the commitment over the weekend from 6'4" Jermaine Couisnard, Montverde Prep in Florida, native of East Chicago. Picked the Gamecocks over Louisville and Illinois. Says he likes Frank Martin, can trust him, knows he's a hard coach, but knows that he loves his guys, going to bring the best out of you. And Chuck Martin, who he's known for a while, recruited him and did an excellent job in recruiting him, he said. averaging 23-7 this season. Clemson has invited 6'7" Christian Brown of Lower Richland to its game tomorrow night. He's recovering from a concussion. He hopes to be able to return to action tomorrow night for his team. So if he's healthy and ready to go, he'll do that. Princeton has also reached out to him, and he's looking into those Tigers. He had planned to visit Florida State Saturday, but had to cancel because his mom was ill.
He got the grades to get into Princeton? I would hope so.
I would think he does. I mean, they don't recruit you unless they can get you in.
You got a basketball player?
That's a basketball player.
Okay, he can get through the back door. They always run the back.
No, very
easy.
good.
Easy. That's not nice.
All
This
right,
is Ivy League school.
That's the recruiting for tonight. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. I'll stop doing lists when you stop screaming into the microphone. How about that? Is that a fair exchange?
I've never screamed into the microphone.
Oh, is that right?
I've never screamed into the
Why do my ears vibrate sometimes when you're trying to make a point?
Sometimes I have to say things a little louder in order to make my point.
You stop screaming, and we won't do lists over 5. How about that? Wow. Is that a fair deal?
3.
I think it's a fair deal. I say 5. And
over
I make
3 is a list.
I make the rules here.
Is that a fact?
800-956-7266 is our phone number here on Sports Talk. I mentioned Joe Lunardi and his latest bracketology out today. So let's take a look at that and see where everybody falls into place. Clemson, he has now as a number 4 seed. And the Tigers, where'd they go? Here we go. 4 seed playing Louisiana in San Diego. They keep going farther and farther away.
Better than Boise.
There you go.
But I'll say this now. Last year, right up until Selection Sunday, they kept putting the Gamecocks in all these places away from South Carolina, and they ended up in Greenville.
Yeah.
So, maybe we'll get lucky with Clemson as well.
The NCAA does like to eliminate the travel as much as possible because they don't like people putting up their travel budgets, because I think there's a certain amount of there's a certain mileage distance or whatever that they basically make them bus if it's below a certain mileage distance. Whereas if they have to go by plane, if it's like across the country.
I have to think because of the mitigating circumstances and because Greenville bent their backs to get it because they had to move it out of North Carolina, that I'm not so certain that Greenville didn't say, now look, we're doing this at the last minute.
As a favor.
So if South Carolina gets in, they come here.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have had a better. You had South Carolina, you had Duke, you had North Carolina. I mean, that guarantees you a full building.
Yes.
For 2 full days.
And you have Arkansas to think, people still travel, so they were there.
That was some great event. I can't wait for it to come back to our state. When does Columbia get it? In 19,
I think next year.
Next year? It's going to be great.
Very nice.
Can I finish this?
Yeah.
Jeez. Where was I? Winthrop is in as a 16 seed to play Kansas in Wichita. Good luck with that. And the SoCon representative by Lunardi is East Tennessee State, a 13 seed to play North Carolina in Boise. Now, last 4 buys were Southern Cal, Marquette, A&M, and Houston. Last 4 in Boise State, SMU, NC State, and Syracuse. How about NC State getting that win in Chapel Hill yesterday? Big. First 4 out. It's with great pleasure. I cannot tell you the amount of pleasure I have in announcing first 4 out.
I don't know. You're going to say it.
Missouri.
Of course you did. Of course you
Virginia Tech, Western Kentucky, and Washington. Next 4 out, Maryland, Notre Dame, South Carolina, and Georgia.
Missouri just got another guard suspended over the weekend. So, I mean, they're running out of bodies like South Carolina's women's team is.
Speaking of that, just coming out from LSU that Will Wade has dismissed freshman Mayan Kerr, Galen Alexander from his basketball team.
Violation
and suspended freshman Brandon Rachel and sophomore Wade Sims. This according to Tiger Rag. Now, Wade said in a press conference Keir would take a leave of absence. Alexander will not return to the program. Sims and Rachel will serve 1-game suspensions. Clemson news, losing a player.
Losing Jabril Robinson, defensive lineman, redshirt junior. He's going to transfer away. Has his degree, eligible immediately as a grad transfer.
All right, we'll come back and get Brad Brownell's thoughts on that win over Georgia Tech from last night.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
All right, so last night Clemson goes into Atlanta seeking a ACC road win. Tigers fell behind and then fought their way back quickly behind Gabe DeVoe. Got red hot. What a night for him. 10 of 15, 25 points. And the Tigers win it and it took a great play by Reed late to put them on top.
Yeah, it's very interesting how this game kind of unfolded. Clemson had a bit of a sleepy start, ended up getting themselves back into the basketball game, only trailed by 2 at half, and they were fortunate to be down by just 2 at half, the way that they had been shooting outside of DeVoe and also the way that they had been calling fouls, or at least not calling fouls against Georgia Tech. Ended up getting themselves a lead in the second half, losing that lead, but regaining their composure and getting a tough victory over Georgia Tech last night. 72-70. Again, you mentioned Marquise Reed had 13 points, 11 assists. That was a career high number for him. Gabe DeVoe, career high 25 points. Head coach Brad Brownell after the game said this game got them a lot of confidence, and also it's one thing where you do not apologize for road wins inside this very tough conference.
Just really proud of my team tonight. I didn't think we obviously didn't play very well early, and certainly thought that Georgia Tech had a lot to do with that. I thought they were really sharp offensively in the first 12 minutes. We couldn't stop them. And, disappointed our team because we practiced, thought we were ready, and just didn't play the game the right way. And but to our guys' credit, we battled back. Gabe DeVoe was great in the first half, obviously made a bunch of deep threes and against the zone, and that kept us in the game. So we kind of settled in a little bit and scored a little bit in different ways. And obviously Marquise was very good in the second half. And I thought he played great down the stretch. So just a really hard-fought, tough win by our guys. Really proud of them.
Every win's good to get, but how big was this one considering everything you guys have went through the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, this was good. We've obviously had to deal with a lot of things here with Dante, who's really our leader, probably our best player just in terms of everything he does. But our guys have continued to battle, and we have to change some things in how we play, not drastically, but there's some subtleties that Dante brings to our team that, that's why he's unique, and he's 6'8", and he does a lot of different types of things that just most people don't have guys that can do that. So now we're plugging him in with Amir, and I thought Amir battled today. He obviously wasn't as productive in terms of making baskets and doing things like that, but I thought he fought hard against Guy. He's a freshman who's in his second start. So, we think he's going to continue to get better and play good basketball. And as much as that, I was just really proud of the way our guys competed tonight. We just hung in there, and didn't go well for a long time. And all of a sudden you look up, we're only down 2 at the half. Probably felt fortunate to only be down 2. Felt like we were in a good position to win the game if we could play a better second half, and I thought we did.
How about Gabe DeVoe's performance tonight? I think it's a career high for him.
Well, he was terrific in the first half. Obviously, he's a good player. He's a senior. He's been in our program a long time. He's battle-tested, shot it great, from range tonight, especially when we were struggling against the zone. And I thought the longer the game went, he started to make some other plays that were really good. And, our backcourt guys here played really well.
Brad, how much did your team confidence boost like this after everything that's gone through?
Yeah, I don't know that, it's an extreme confidence boost like we're, we just lost 1 in a row. Is that – I don't even remember. I'm so bad. I don't know what day it is. But I know we lost to Virginia, and I don't even know who we played before Virginia. But we needed it from the standpoint of, it makes you feel good to know that this group can go win a road game. Without Dante Grantham, we can go on the road and win in a place that's hard to win in front of a good crowd. And, hopefully what it does is give confidence to the guys that need it on our team. He doesn't need it. Most of the Shelton Mitchell and Gabe DeVoe don't need it. They're fine. But some of the other guys on our team need some confidence. And going and playing in games like this where it's nip and tuck close and winning it, making a couple big plays, that certainly helps.
I don't purport to know Brad Brownell's team better than he does, but I will say it. That team needed that victory last night because if they're going to do any kind of work inside this conference during the latter part of the season, they need to prove that they can win without Dante Grantham and win away from home because they need some more of these victories that again, will catch the attention of the committee. Now, Georgia Tech won't catch the attention of the committee, but a win like this gets you to a point where you can go to a place like Virginia Tech and win or Syracuse and win.
Well, especially when guys know their roles. As you say, Scara and the other forward, what is Hannon? They played like guys who really wanted to bother people. And they did. Georgia Tech's front court was thrown off. But they would need some shooting nights like they had from DeVoe as well, especially on the road as well. And playing that defense they did because down the stretch they played some pretty good defense.
Well, and the one thing that we talked about all last week, it was try to get Elijah Thomas the basketball, and we saw why. There was one particular sequence why not getting him the basketball is going to cause problems. There was one sequence where he caught the ball about as deep in the post as you can behind the basket, and instead of trying to reverse the basketball, Brownell is yelling at him to reverse the basketball. Instead of reversing the basketball, he tries to go 1-on-4 against four different defenders and go an individual move. He didn't even get a shot up. That is why you need to get the big man the basketball more because you need to be able to show the kind of trust in him that you know that he's going to be able to do the right thing with the ball. Because if you don't get him the basketball, he's going to try to do ill-advised things like go through defenders because he doesn't know when his next touch is coming. So in that regard, I still think they need to get the ball inside a lot more to Elijah Thomas because when you get him the basketball, it's just like what happened in South Carolina. When you get paint touches, you get baskets.
Absolutely. He got 10 shots last night, did he not? I think he got 10. I think he needs at least 12.
Well, Clemson had better be on its best behavior and its best performance tomorrow night against North Carolina at Little John. North Carolina has lost 2 in a row. They don't lose 3 in a row very often. Last time that happened was 2014. So, North Carolina is going to come in and give it their best shot against Clemson. We know that Clemson has never defeated North Carolina in Chapel Hill. They have beaten them in Little John a few times. So, when they get them, that's usually where they get them. They do have some wins in the state of North Carolina. They've won in Greensboro against them. They've won in Charlotte against them. Just haven't won in Chapel Hill. And they have won at Clemson at the various arenas there. So the place will be packed. Should be a very loud, supportive Clemson crowd. 132-20 is the series record. North Carolina has won 10 in a row and 20 of 21. But the stat of the weekend was this. North Carolina lost at home. Duke lost at home. First time in 44 years.
Yeah, I saw that. That was crazy.
They have lost at home on the same day.
That's hilarious.
That's mind-boggling.
When did
nobody in the ACC is weeping for them either.
No.
But you remember, what was it, 30, 35 years ago, Black Sunday, when both lost in the NCAA tournament in Greensboro?
Oh, yeah. It's I've been to Duke before for a later game when a North Carolina game is going on, and they'll have the North Carolina game up on the screen inside Cameron Indoor to let the students have their fun. This particular time, this was a Clemson-Duke game I was waiting for, and a North Carolina game was going on prior to it. And of course, I think North Carolina lost that game, and man, you would have thought Duke had won a game.
Oh, yeah.
That's how excited that they were. So I'm wondering, trying to remember the time Saturday, who were they playing at the same time, or did one go before the other?
The North Carolina game started at noon, and the Duke game started at 2.
So I imagine in Cameron they were watching North Carolina lose and loved it, only to have their own loss coming a couple of hours later.
Well,
so
go to the SO Club and watch them watch USC. They get pretty excited for those particular situations as well.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like you'd think that Clemson was playing, except they're rooting for the opposition, obviously.
All right, there you go. So looking forward to that. I'll be up at Little John tomorrow night for that game, and we'll see if the Tigers can take down the Tar Heels and break that 10-game losing streak. Duke leading Notre Dame 33-25.
Citadel's hanging tough with East Tennessee State, only down by 3.
That'd be a huge win for the Bulldogs. They can pull that off.
And Wofford leading Western Carolina 21-19 early up in Spartanburg.
All right, we'll hear from Frank Martin coming up in a moment.
You are old-fashioned.
I am?
Yeah.
What makes you think so?
It's just your personality. It's your personality. It's very old-fashioned.
Don't think I'm old-fashioned at all.
Well, when they say you like old-fashioned, I just say I like consistency.
Mm-hmm.
You don't like change. You're very old-fashioned.
Well, I don't like change. Like I was saying, I like things to
stay the same.
Stay the same. Yeah.
Here's a surprising thing for you, Mr. Pelagic. As
Sir.
you get older, you will hate change.
Well, we're having, for those who this doesn't really matter to anybody, but they're changing over our computers tonight, which means, I've been working on this same computer for, I guess, 5 years, maybe.
They do every
and this
5
computer
years.
has gone everywhere with me. I mean, it never leaves my side.
The thing I don't like,
and I dread having to learn a new computer and set it up to my liking.
The only thing I don't like is that this computer, with its previous owner, I'm sure went to every away game, since you probably sent him to every away game since you hate to travel. But it has all of the saved passwords for the Wi-Fi for all the arenas I go into.
That's great.
I don't even have to like look down or whatever.
That's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that I don't like about switching to the computer. But I like new technology.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what they're giving us. Have you seen?
I have no clue.
Yeah.
No shot.
So, I mean, the computers we've got now are, they're top of the line. They are, they don't have hard drives. It's those Intel Core things that never crash,
yeah,
supposedly.
One thing I know is it doesn't have a little red button on it.
For what?
You launched a missile.
Oh.
So stupid.
Him or me?
Sometimes it's both of you. Sometimes it's both of you.
Frank Martin today had his weekly meeting with the media, coming off another tough home loss on a Saturday, this time to Texas Tech. Previously, it was to Tennessee, and he answered a bunch of questions about a number of different things, about Chris Silva, about various players, Justin Minaya, about how he's developing, about how Chris Silva's emerged as the leader of the team and the go-to guy and all that kind of stuff. One thing he pointed out that hurt them in the loss Saturday was Minaya. After they got their 5-point lead, the Gamecocks did with about 6 minutes to go. Minaya picked up a fourth foul, and he had to sit him down. And Minaya is the key, he said, to their zone defense. He plays their zone defense better than anybody in the middle, and they missed him in there. And he felt like, in retrospect, he sat him too long. He should have put him back out there sooner. It hurt them. It helped Texas Tech to their comeback for whatever reason. And I think part of the reason they made their comeback was the Gamecocks, they fell in love with the three in the last 5 minutes instead of trying to work it inside to Silva and getting, of course, one of the post-game themes was how tough it was to score inside against Texas Tech. And it's true. Silva had to do a lot of hard working and a lot of body gyrations to get his shot off inside.
Well, what they do, Texas Tech, they play that defense that basically is similar to what Frank Martin's team does, is they basically prevent anything getting into the middle. They basically take you to the baseline. They force you outside. And the thing that South Carolina got is they got aroused by the three-point shot. And I think that, when they're falling, it can be a good thing. But at the end of the game, they weren't able to try and sustain that. And, they went only 5 for 26 from the three-point
They
land.
gave South Carolina a dose of their own medicine.
Exactly.
When they had Sindarius Thornwell and P.J. Dozier, when you ran into that lane, say, wait a minute, these guards are kind of big in here.
And they were very lengthy, very heady guards.
Good team.
And they'll be a tough out.
Absolutely.
Whoever in the Big 12 has to play them. And,
Really?
and I think, too, the thing about South Carolina, the thing that they learned is that sometimes you need to be more creative on the offensive end. And that's, I think, the thing that they're finding out more and more. Though the thing that I did like is the fact that they were able to, once again, make headway when they had to sit Chris Silva for foul trouble and also for some of the things that they had early on in the game. And so they were able to play without him. It's not like you absolutely need him on the floor to win, but it obviously makes South Carolina a better team.
So from his 27-minute news conference today, there really were a couple of major points, I think, worth sharing with the audience. So here are a few minutes from Frank Martin from earlier today.
With this Mississippi State team, just what kind of a challenge do they pose to your guys' interior defense, and how will they kind of test that?
Yeah, they've got a young man. I'm probably going to mispronounce his name, Ado, A-D-O, who's the best post player that Ben's had since he's been there at Mississippi State. can really score on the interior, rebounds the basketball. He runs plays for him. And you got Alaric Hallman, who's a 6'10 gazelle that has gotten better every single year. He's having a very good year for them, can shoot the three, can post, very athletic, has played well against us the last 2 years. And they still have number 45, Daxler, I want to say is his name, comes off the bench, who played a lot for them last year. Just a big, strong bruiser that plays his role in an unbelievable way to come in there and just knock you around and go after balls in his time on the court. And then they end up playing small sometimes with Q Witherspoon. They'll put him at the 4, and he's a handful, whether he plays at the 1, the 2, the 3, or the 4. He's a lot like Sindarius. He's a handful. He's a handful to defend. Once again, 3-year guy that's been going at it for 3 years and been a very good player for 3 years. So there's a confidence about the way he plays. But on the inside, those are the guys. And then, then you got the 2 little guards. I say little because they look little next to their players, but they're not small. And Peters and the younger Witherspoon, and they're coming at you off the dribble. So they're getting in that paint off the dribble. So they've won 16. I think it's 15 or 16. I could be wrong. 15. They've won 15 for a reason now. They're a pretty darn good basketball team.
Frank, obviously Corey warmed up with you guys these past 2 games. I think that was for the first time. How much closer do you think he is to getting on the floor?
We'll see today. He went through the day before Texas Tech, Thursday. He did a couple things, and then on Friday he probably went through. When I mean a couple things, I'm talking about other than shooting balls and non-competitive stuff. Probably went through 40 minutes of competitive basketball, and then we shut him down. We weren't going to play him against Texas Tech, so there's no sense of trying to push it. He's going to try and go here today and see if he can get through a whole practice, and if he can, then we'll see what happens tomorrow and moving forward. But I think it was about 2 weeks ago I told you guys I'd be surprised if it was 7-10 days before he came back. This is week 6, and we've always targeted week 6 as the first possible availability for his hamstring, for the severity of his hamstring pull.
All right, Frank Martin. So it'd be nice if they could get Corey Holden back into uniform and on the court. They could certainly use his services. Again, even though they lost on Saturday, didn't hurt them in the SEC. They're 4-4. They can win against Mississippi State. They'll get to 5-4. And I mean, the league is nobody is. I mean, Auburn 7-1, Florida 6-2. Then you got a bunch of 5-3. So it's not like the top of the league is running away and hiding. The RPI this week, as far as Clemson and South Carolina are concerned, Clemson now number 5 in the RPI behind Virginia, Villanova, Xavier, and Duke. And then it's Clemson. And South Carolina is 53 this week. And one of their wins, of course, is a non-Division I win. So they still, they don't need to be in this win one, lose one sort of exchange. They need to put together a little run of victories here to kind of move themselves off that ledge and in much stronger position for postseason play. And Clemson just needs to maintain. A win tomorrow night would be huge for them.
South Carolina's remaining stretch is a winnable one. I think going down to Texas A&M and winning would provide some very good foundational resume support, I think, because that's obviously a team that up and down, up and down, up and down. But again, road wins are looked at very, very highly by the committee. And then you have Arkansas following that. And then Florida comes to town with the return engagement of the game that you won. So if you can get a sweep over Florida with these 2 road victories coming up, I mean, that positions you a lot better than you're sitting right now.
And they got to get one of those wins against Auburn. They got 2 against them.
And if Clemson can win tomorrow night, they got a chance to roll off really 4 in a row.
Yes.
With Wake Forest on the road, Pittsburgh at home. If they can win all those, that's 4 in a row before they go down to Florida State on Valentine's Day. Back in a moment.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Upset alerts at McAllister Fieldhouse. Still got some time left. Bulldogs got some work to do, but they are up on East Tennessee. East Tennessee undefeated in the SoCon, 64-61. The Bulldogs with 4.5 to play. That would be a great win for the program if they can hold on.
How bad do Wofford and Furman have to feel if the Citadel is doing this to East Tennessee State?
Well, see, the problem is we haven't had Coach Balcom on the show this season. For the apparently it's the Sports Talk curse alive and well, because Wofford, again, as twice we've had Mike Young. Let's see, we had him on after they beat North Carolina.
We did.
Then he lost. Is that right?
I think he did.
And then we had him on
because they lost the opener to UNC Greensboro.
And then we had him on again on Friday night, and he loses on Saturday. We had Coach Ritchie on from Furman before he played with Wofford, and he lost to not a good reputation we're building here at all.
No,
and you told us that, that the folks at USC want us to get Frank Martin on the air. He probably doesn't want to come on the air now. Same thing for Brown. He didn't want to. He's ducking us too now.
It hasn't happened yet. Okay, you notice that it hasn't happened yet. What you got, bro?
No, I was about to say the Citadel had a chance to hit a layup to make it a 7-point lead. They missed the layup, and then East Tennessee State went on a 4-0 run, and now they're down by only 1. At half in Spartanburg, it's Western Carolina 34, Wofford 33, and in the Atlantic Sun, Lipscomb leading USC Upstate 36-29 at the half.
Another thing, we were talking earlier about that Blake Griffin deal or whatever. Remember that day when they basically held DeAndre Jordan hostage in Houston, where they had Doc come down and Paul Pierce come down and Chris Paul come down? What do all those guys have in common? They're all no longer in Los Angeles. They left DeAndre Jordan alone in Los Angeles with Doc Rivers.
Here's the thinking I'm going on. When Robert Ory was traded from Houston to Detroit, somehow Robert Ory flunked the physical. They sent him back to Houston, and that's when Houston won their 2 championships because he was sent back to Houston because he flunked his physical in Detroit.
Big Shot Bob, right? Big Shot Bob.
What, Dad lives here in Columbia, I think.
I didn't know that.
I thought he
Serious?
did.
I did not know that.
I think he does. I'm not sure.
All right, so coming up on the end of tonight's program, just to recap what we've got going on for you this week. Tomorrow night up at Little John Coliseum for Clemson and North Carolina. Should be a great night of basketball.
Enjoy the climb, by the way, up to the media section.
Oh, I've made that climb many times.
It's not fun.
You know, I think the only thing Dan Radakovich hated about redesigning the building at Little John was that he couldn't put the media further up into the stratosphere.
Yeah.
I mean, they reached their limit. He just ran out of money, so he couldn't add another 500 feet.
What was your line? What was that line? That night when you said you blow your nose on Tree Rollins' jersey?
That's good. That's funny.
And I needed it that night, as a matter of fact.
It's funny.
So we'll be there for that. I can't believe this is my first home game. I've seen the Tigers several times this season, but it's been on the road. It'll be my first time seeing them at Little John.
I know that everybody associated with Clemson's media corps is just itching to see you.
I can just promise you that. So we got that, and then Wednesday night, USC Mississippi State 8:30 tip. So I appreciate ESPN taking us into consideration. They didn't want to go head to head with us anyway.
Apparently not.
It's a losing situation for the ESPN going up against us. So they decided to help their ratings and tip off at 8:30, so we can both be there to see the Gamecocks and the Bulldogs. Ben Howland trying to make Mississippi State a powerhouse once again.
Make Bulldog basketball great again.
Yeah.
Right.
And then Thursday night, South Carolina and UConn. Is it going to be a sellout?
I think.
Have they announced it as a sellout?
I don't think they've announced it's a sellout, but I think it'd be hard pressed not to be.
You know,
they had a lot of people there yesterday.
Oh yeah. What was the official attendance for the men's game? They announced 14,000 plus.
The women's game, they did not post.
It looked big on television.
They did not post an attendance. They looked like a lot of people there.
Yeah. And there was a loud crowd too. They were really into it. And then what else is happening after that? That's Friday, of course, Friday before Super Bowl. And on Friday night, we will have with us for a special visit with us our money man. Corn, it's been so long. Lee Sterling, thank you. Gosh, Lee Sterling will be with us on Friday night. Make a note at 6:45.
I'm
to give us some prop bets and things of that nature related to the Super Bowl.
I love the prop bets. Big fan.
Yeah, the prop bets. When is New England going to get the strange call that turns the game around?
That's true. That is true. Is there a more protected franchise in all of sports by the officials outside of North Carolina? Is there a, one time, here's something I wish I could go back and find. It would take some time. But one time, many years ago, I went through I don't know how many seasons of basketball games between Clemson and North Carolina and added up the number of free throws taken by the two teams. And it was so absurdly lopsided. Now, keep in mind, not a lot of times, almost every time Clemson was trailing and would have to foul. But even if you work that into the formula, it was still obscenely one-sided in favor of North Carolina. The number of free throws.
Well, the one call that really comes to mind to me in the ACC tournament is when Wake Forest looked like they had a win over North Carolina. And I thought they may have lost that game, Corn, but maybe you remember when I guess North Carolina used to always keep 3 or 4 7-footers on the bench, and they put one in the game when Skip Brown was inbounding the ball, so he had to throw it high. And one of the officials said, well, your pass scrape the bottom of the scoreboard hanging there, and the ball turns over. That was the weirdest. I said, I never saw the ball change direction, not on the TV.
Speaking of foul calls, and they made a big deal about this. What did you think of the chewing that Justin Minaya got by Frank Martin at the end of that first half on that foul call? He was very, very.
You're talking about
livid.
What television picked up? Or?
Yeah. It was,
well, he deserved it. I mean, you can't foul the guy on a last-second shot and put him on the line for
Jimmy
3.
Dykes on the TV kept coming back to that point. He kept making that point. Like, oh, he has to keep his composure and he has to flush this and stuff like that. I'm like, man. Who
has to flush it, Frank or the kid?
The kid. The kid has to flush it.
Yeah.
As far as that stuff. And I just go back to thinking about that one call that we had last week who bemoaned Frank Martin's courtside manner.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, again, you want that.
I mean, Frank, when you make a mistake before a timeout and you're headed to the sideline, he's coming out and he's going to chew you out. That is just his brand, his style of coaching. It's going to happen every single time. And especially when he's forced to call a timeout because of one of your mistakes, you're really going to get it bad.
And I don't know if it was said on this program or who said it or where I heard it, but Frank Martin brings you into a practice and lets you watch, like when you're a recruit, he lets you watch, lets you watch how he coaches players. So it's not a, it's not a foreign thing. You're going to possibly earn yourself some time in Frank Martin's kitchen, if you know what I mean.
But Frank also said that, some of these players I recruit, and sometimes I'm tough and I understand that, but then suddenly they get surprised when they may go somewhere else and figure out, wait a minute, this coach yells like Frank Martin. At least I show them up front what they get into.
There should be no surprises. And again, to a player, any recruit who seriously considers South Carolina and makes a decision to either go to USC or somewhere else, they will tell you during the process, and then if they pick the Gamecocks, they know exactly what they're getting into.
True.
They
know
like being coached tough.
They like being coached tough. They like the discipline. They believe that he's a coach that can develop you and get the most out of you. I mean, look at Chris Silva.
And conversely, he won't recruit players he don't think he can handle.
Absolutely. But, I mean, look at Thornwell, even though he was a talented player when he got there. Look at really Chris Silva is a fine example of development under Frank Martin because, he was long and lean and not very tough when he came to South Carolina. And now, he's one of the best players in the SEC.
True.
That will do it. We'll see you tomorrow night from Clemson and back here in Columbia. Have a great night. Thank you, everybody. See you tomorrow.